Hello and welcome to Hosoda Month, everyone. What is Hosoda Month, you ask? Well, first let me tell you what it's not. It's not a copy of RC Anime's Edgy Month because fuck Matt.
Wait, what did I do?
Fuck off, Matt. Anyway, in the upcoming weeks, I'll be taking a look into the films that Mamoru Hosoda have directed. Well, most of them anyway. To kickstart Hosoda Month, today I'll present to you a review of The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. The method of using time travel to tell a story hasn't really been used too often in anime. Sure, there are some series that have time travel aspects, but very rarely does an anime solely focus on time travel itself. Steins Gate would be the most notable one, but before Steins Gate we had the film The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. Being one of my favorite anime film directors, Mamoru Hosoda is actually fairly new as he's really only directed 4 feature films, the second one being the first standalone. So today I ask, does The Girl Who Leapt Through Time tell a well-written time travel story? Stick around to find out. The Girl Who Leapt Through Time follows a very simple time travel story, but yet the way in which it's executed is quite brilliant. The story follows Makoto Kono, a teenage high school girl who, after a series of unfortunate events, almost ends up getting run over by a train due to her brakes failing. However, just as she is about to get run over, Makoto falls into what initially seems to be an acid trip and, you guessed it, leaps back in time. With her new ability, Makoto abuses her power to make her everyday life easier without everything that might be consequences. What I really like about this film is how everything seems so insubstantial in the start, but later we see how the smallest decisions can have the most devastating of effects. When Makoto first gets her ability to leap through time, she does what any normal teenager would do. She exploits her power for personal gain, whether it be cheating on a test, deciding what food she wants for dinner, or just avoiding any uncomfortable situations. Although we later see how such use of her power can later have drastic impacts in her life. Surprisingly enough, this film actually has its fair share of emotional moments, putting us through the character's shoes. The scenes aren't overblown, but have enough emphasis for us to care about what's happening. You feel the sudden realization that Makoto experiences while also understanding what it feels like to regret something that you did. This film is very relatable in that sense because who hasn't wanted to go back in time and change something that you did? Like most time travel stories, the film presents us with the butterfly effect, except this time in a miniature scale, while also subtly hinting that with great power comes great responsibility, but portrays it in a way that doesn't spoon feed us its moral messages. The charm of this film comes from its lighthearted atmosphere and just how believable everything really is. You get a sense of intrigue of how characters will solve their problems while also wondering how that problem occurred. Even with such a simple story, the film presents us with such great themes, the most prevalent one being time waits for no one, and this is even referenced in the film itself. The statement can be interpreted in various ways, but what I personally took from it is just how fast time flies by in your life and how you shouldn't waste it idling around. Everyone should strive to accomplish something in their life. If an opportunity presents itself, then you should take it, for better or for worse. The one thing that you don't want is to look back in your life and regret your decisions of not doing anything. I think this film portrays that message in a very clever and subtle way, not necessarily through its dialogue, but through the character's actions. The term actions speak louder than words is exactly how I would describe this film, as it beautifully fits the narrative. The ending of this film had something unexpected happen which actually pleasantly surprised me. It turned into a romance which at first I thought was a little out of place, but after rewatching it I realized that it actually complements the main theme, giving us the message that time is fleeting and that you should make the most of what you have. The ending is short but sweet and is sure to give you a joyful experience.
If today was like any other day, there wouldn't have been any problems.
Having only 1 hour and 30 minutes of runtime, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time only really has one important character, that being Makoto Kono. She has a very lively and enthusiastic personality and can also be considered a tomboy due to her lack of female friends. When Makoto first got her ability to leap through time, she was very naive and irresponsible and kept abusing her power for her own needs. This brought us a lighthearted and very believable situation, since anyone with the ability to leap through time would also use it to their advantage. Throughout the film, Makoto slowly learns that mistreatment of her powers can lead to severe consequences, and we can see the development Makoto goes through as she realizes that having such power shouldn't be used for trivial things. This is subtly reflected in the end of the film by how Makoto is now more assertive and attentive in her life. She cares enough to help other people and also appreciates the happy world she lives in, learning how to be responsible and taking on new opportunities instead of being stagnant in her life. This subtle transition is what makes her character so great. As for the supporting cast, none of them are pivotal to the overall story, however their interactions with Makoto serve to enhance her progression. What I mean by this is that every time Makoto Makoto leaps back in time, the sudden changes that occur affect other characters, and so Makoto is able to contemplate whether or not using her time leaps for her own selfish needs is the right thing to do. While the supporting characters aren't really memorable, it's not to say that they can be disregarded, because without them, Makoto would definitely not have learned all those important life lessons that she had. Animated by Madhouse, the production quality is quite splendid, with all their backgrounds looking extremely detailed and gorgeous. Their use of light color palettes brings out the vibrancy and liveliness of the surroundings and really complements the lighthearted tone of the film. You can really experience the hot summer weather as the buildings and objects are drawn with a singe, emulating the heat they're in. Where the animation really shines is when Makoto leaps through time, and the sequences that follow are trippy but look very fluid in motion. The time traveling sequences look very magical and give off a Disney-esque feel, making everything seem so wonderful. The character movements are very well animated, with most of the scenes containing realistic character motion that's easy to pick up on. However, the one thing I don't like about Madhouse in this film is their character designs. This is more of a personal preference, but the characters themselves lack any distinctive features, and sometimes the background characters lack any drawn faces. Though that's not to say that other people won't enjoy the character designs, because I personally just don't like it myself.
I would have fried that tempura better, and that stupid boy at school wouldn't have been thrown into me. I thought today was supposed to be a nice day.
Probably the weakest part of the film is the soundtrack. There really isn't any noteworthy tracks apart from the ending theme, as most of them just fit as background music but don't really stand out on their own as individual songs. They aren't bad per se, as most of them are just warm upbeat tracks performed with the piano, although they're not really memorable. The ending theme, however, Garnet by Oku Hanako, is very soothing and pleasant to listen to. Paired with the ending of the film, it's powerful and absolutely worth your time to check out. The voice acting is overall pretty great, especially Makoto's character having an almost obnoxious and cheeky tone really captures her persona, and during those emotional scenes you can really feel the passion that was given. During those emotional moments, no sounds or background music was played, as you could only hear the cries and heavy breathing from Makoto, and this is a very effective way of conveying her feelings. While there was a severe lack of any background music at times, the background noise, however, gave a very urban and hot environment. It almost felt like that you were actually there.
There's no way. How can you leap back in time? It's definitely not possible. No chance. At least it's not something that I can do.
The Girl Who Leapt Through Time tells a very light-hearted time travel story that's both subtle in its moral messages and just also a ton of fun. Being only Hosoda's second feature film, this is arguably his best written work, and you know what? I'd be inclined to agree. However, despite this, it's not my favorite from him. Calculating all the scores and averaging everything out, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time receives a solid 8 out of 10, as it's definitely a great film. For similar anime, I recommend Hotarubi no Mori-e. It's a very underrated film with a very similar bittersweet ending, as well as Hal, another sci-fi romance with a surprising twist thrown in. If you live in Australia or New Zealand, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time is available through Madman Entertainment on Blu-ray and DVD. With that, thanks for watching this somewhat short review, and join me next week. Yes, that's right, next week, where I'll be reviewing Hosoda's next film, the Digimon movie. I mean Summer Wars, my bad, they're just so similar. Isn't that right, Matt?
Fuck you, Kevin.